Welcome, viewers, to the Inside Interviews podcast, which is an enlightening series of academic discussions taking a deeper dive into a variety of unique topics. After this episode, be sure to check out the previous ones on our website, YouTube, or your favorite podcast platform. Today, we are pleased to have Dr. Seyed Amir Hossein Asghari joining us. He is the senior fellow at the Center for the Study of the Middle East at Indiana University, Bloomington. Seyed Amir Hossein Asghari has a doctorate and is a scholar of Islamic thought whose work explores intersections of religion, ethics, and culture with a focus on Shia intellectual and Sufi traditions. He is the author of Sufism and Philosophy in the Contemporary Shia Seminary, Scholars and Mystics, Bloomsbury 2025. And we're here to discuss that book today. This book examines debates over reason, revelation, and spiritual authority in the modern Shia seminary. His current monograph, Natural Law and Interreligious Understanding, Islamic Context, is forthcoming. In this current monograph, he develops a Qur'an-based account of innate and natural universal moral knowledge to support interfaith collaboration. Dr. Asghari has taught at Indiana University, Butler University, and Baylor University, offering courses on Quranic studies, Islamic philosophy, and interreligious ethics, and participates in Shia Jewish legal reasoning dialogues. Thank you very much, Dr. Asghari, for joining us today.
Thank you so much. It's my pleasure to be with you and the viewer, and my salams to all of you. Thank you so much. My pleasure.
Thank you so much. When I saw the book and I started reading it, I found it was so interesting because there are a lot of studies about Sufism and Shi'ism. I mean, it's something that, in different ways, especially Ibn Arabi and, Haydar Amoli, and, it seems to be very current, very exciting. In fact, we had a whole conference on Ibn Arabi, the legacy of Ibn Arabi last year at the Institute, and we have a book coming out on this as well, an edited volume.
Mashallah.
Your book is particularly interesting because you focus, you look at that period, but you focus on the modern period and kind of look at how all of this has been received, digested, and debated in the contemporary period. Can you tell us a little bit about how you came to writing this book and why you chose to focus on this particular time period, which is, the contemporary period?
Okay. Thank you for your question. Well, as you mentioned, the idea between Shiism, Sufism, and all the Ibn Arabi stuff things. Previously, when I started my PhD studies at Indiana University, I was thinking about writing on my dissertation on Sayyid Haydar Amoli and how he articulates the, Shi'i-Sufi relations. Then later on, with all the discussion that was going on around me, I was following all the conversations between pro-philosophy and Sufis and anti-philosophy and Sufis, and I decided, okay, well, let's think about, kind of narrating, articulating this debate and the sources of this debate within the modern Shia seminary, which goes through the course of his history. I mean, goes to the people like Sayyid Haydar Amoli and many others that I discussed. Some of them are, in fact, in my book. But especially, I mean, regarding the kind of figures like Allama Sayyid Muhammad Hussain Tabatabai, which was at the same time a philosopher, a theologian, a mystic himself as well. And then, so he was also sort of dealing with this question, a kind of a representative of a Sufi school. But I just calling it Sufi school, but we also call it an Irfani school in our, in the countries like Iran. So with all those having in one person, and I was trying to think about this specific school, how Tabatabai comes to present his ideas, and where it comes from, and what are the characteristic of that school, And who are those oppositions, like Said Mirza Mahdi Isfani and his school? So it was a kind of legitimate, it was a question which was kind of under the umbrella of reason and revelation, which was always with me. So I talked to a number of scholars, like I talked to Dr. John Walbridge, my advisor at the time, and he was very interested in the what is going on and the question itself. So we decided to write on this. And I spent time on different levels when historical background, going back very deep back into history, onto coming into very contemporary discussions in this sense under the, and investigating this question.
Yeah, because it is the word Sufi
Yeah.
is a pejorative term in the Hausa,
Yeah.
generally speaking. It's pejorative.
Yeah.
Najaf, welcome everyone. Sufi, someone will look at you.
Yeah. What?
Talking about,
Yes. Yes.
And both of us having that background in that world, and we know this is this pejorative word.
Yeah.
Why is it so pejorative? Why is it such a dirty word, or it's seen as a naughty word, really, to use the word Sufi, right?
Yeah. Yes.
So tell us a little bit about why it's viewed as such a pejorative word, especially in the contemporary time, even if they mean irfan by it, but to use the word Sufi itself is
Yeah.
seen as being very controversial, right?
Exactly. Exactly. Well, yeah, it's a huge discussion over there. Historically, there are many reasons for contemporary uh, scholar jurists to be suspicious about Sufism. There are many reasons. You can find hadiths, narrations that are kind of anti-Sufis. You can find, following the narrations, some of the ulamas during the course of history who wrote against Sufism as well. Even you can find philosophers and mystics like Mullah Sadra, who writes against the ignorance of Sufis. In his book Kasr al-Asnam al-Jahiliyyah, the breaking of the idols of the ignorance, he attacks those people who mentions that we are Sufis, and according to him, they know nothing about the reality of Sufism. And then historically also, during the second half of the Safavid period, when the ulamas, when we say ulamas, the fuqaha or the jurists, when they got power, so there was no space for Sufis, especially during the time that Sufis also involved with the politics and power, as Mullah Sadra speaks about them, Jahala Sufia, or the ignorance of Sufis. So, historically, environment, society, culture, everything at that time was against the Sufis. And they had to leave the scene. And you know that historically, a number of Shi'i Sufis within Iran, they moved to, in fact, India, like Nematullah Sufis, especially. So they left. But on the other hand, you have, at the same time, you have people like Mullah Sadra, for instance, they were kind of those philosophers and also spiritualists or Sufis or Arifs. We can judge them through their works, we can judge them through the Asfar al-Arba, and we can judge through the other, kind of interpretation of Quran, even interpretation of Hadith as well, that he had. But but you can find those people still remaining. They are spiritual, but they want to kind of protect themselves from the accusations. These kind of people, they use the term irfan or arif instead of Sufi, to kind of find a create a safeguard from the accusations. However, the accusations that are still there. Even people like Mullah Sadr and his followers were under attack. Now, if we want to go into deeper discussion, yes, there are many other scholars. They, kind of debated the authenticity of hadiths. They debated. They debated like the Muqaddas, the book attributed to Muqaddas Ardabili, Hadithatul
Yeah.
Shia.
Yeah.
It is actually a number of good scholarly articles recently published in, studying the number of manuscripts of this book and doubting about the authenticity of this attribution to Muqaddas al-Ardabili. But anyway, so those hadiths are there as well as some other places. But the question was that, so wait a minute. Do you think that these are only Sufis were kind of rejected by Imams, or there were other groups of people rejected too? Maybe some Fuqahas. Let's think about it. Hmm? Aren't there maybe some, other group of people as well? And then not only in Hadiths, but in Quran as well. You have Quran talks always about people, even Ya ayyuhallazina amanu. So those believers that have another layer of belief, um, put you, kind of talking about between Islam and Iman, Aslamna,
Yeah.
between Islam and Iman. So also Quran talks about different group of people that at one point you can see them, okay, someone is Muslim, but sometimes you see that the Muslim itself is under question because of very different things, like whether he follows, whether his heart is following the religion or not, very different kind of things. And the point is that today in contemporary seminary as well, the seminaries are mostly um, kind of devoting their times in producing jurists because society needs jurists. And then the idea and mentality that usually people have about Sufis are ambiguous, negative, and let's say negative and ambiguous about them. And that you have the people like Mullah Sadr writing about Jahala, the ignorance among the Sufis. And then all pushbacks that happened during the course of history. All those things, I think that created a space for contemporary jurists to look at the Sufis as a group of people who are, not following the Sharia, who are, kind of having inventions within religion and not following the exact word of imams, or creating another authority in front of having imam as the real authority, and then they are creating another one. So all these discussions helped those people to be against Sufism as they understood it.
And I think that there is this ever-pervading tension, and it's also in that hadith that I shared with you, right, where at least ascribed to
Yeah.
uh, to uh, to Imam Sadiq,
Yeah.
um, again narrated in that famous book Hadithatul Shia, right, by al-Ardabili,
Yeah.
where the Imam allegedly, as attributed to him here, and in other traditions, and say Na'matullah Jazari quotes this in his Risala on
Yeah. Yeah.
Sufiya, right? He quotes this and all these other traditions in his Risala, which is interestingly found in his Sharaf Sahifa Sajadiyya. And that's just fascinating why he put that Risala in a Sharaf Sahifa, but that's a different issue.
Yeah.
And the level of condemnation, right? I mean, bara and
Yeah.
kufr,
Yeah.
it is like basically the language is so harsh here,
Yeah.
right?
It's harsh.
يتشبهون بهم ويلقبون أنفسهم بلقبهم يولون أقوالهم إلا فمن مال إليهم فليس منا, right?
Yeah.
So basically the one who inclines to them is not from us.
Yeah.
وإن منه
Yeah.
براء ومن أنكرهم ورد عليهم كان كمن جاهد الكفار بين يدي رسول الله. I mean, this language is so strong, doctor. I mean,
Absolutely.
it's
Yeah.
is it, and I think you've hinted at this, and this is something I've brought up in other discussions as well, because we've this discussion we also had, as I mentioned last year, in the
Yeah.
Benarabi conference. And this is something that Faizat Kashani and many other people raised, which is the word Sufi here becomes a representation of a competing source of authority to the Imams.
Mm-hmm.
Somehow there is this if there is an alternative source of esoteric knowledge,
Mm-hmm.
this is now in opposition to the wilaya al-mutlaqa or wilaya takwiniya, this kind of divine creative bestowal of power on the imam. And hence, if it's a competing source of spiritual charisma, it is viewed as a source of infidelity, kufr, and misguidance. So how do Shia scholars, or how would they grapple with this tradition, if they were to even accept that the narration and the narrations that Jazairi quotes in his Risala, which are numerous, as you know, actually apply to a group known as Sufia. So who are these Sufis here?
Yes, exactly. Oh, that's I think that we need to also have the diraya or the interpretation of hadith as well, because many words and terminologies and terms are having their meaning changed during the course of
Yeah,
history.
yeah,
And so sometimes you call a group of people as Sufis with a certain Sufis, a certain city, certain community, and you can call it. I mean, right now in the North America, you can call a group of Sufi people calling them Sufi, and you criticize them. On
yeah,
the other hand, you can find in another city a group of other people calling themselves Sufi and say that, oh, they are good people. So I think that it is kind of generalization, and logically or intellectually, this kind of generalization is not helpful.
yeah,
Not helpful. I mean, the same goes on with the history of philosophy. Like those who are anti-philosophers, they were, and within the Shia community, they say that, okay, during the Beit al-Hikmah, they translated all those philosophy and science in order to, kind of um, move the attention of people from imams, from the authority of imams, and that's the reason that philosophy is bad for them. But the question is, the question is, whether nowadays, imagine if really philosophy or rationality in that sense was bad, but what about now? What about today? Is that having the same function of that philosophy had, like during the Beit al-Hikmah, the House of Wisdom, during the Abbasid time, or it's completely changed. It's something else. Now it is Allama Tabatabai teaching philosophy. It's not Ma'mun, for
yeah,
instance, ordering to translate for philosophy. At the same, I mean, same as Sufism, the same. Imagine, look at Quran, for instance. I had a discussion. I was telling you, if you look at Quran, if you read Quran itself as a divine text, then Quran talks to you in different manners, asks you, tells you, remember God kasiran, always.
yeah,
It talks to Prophet Muhammad and says that I know that you are praying during the night. You have like the night prayer, this amount of time, half of a night or three quarter, but any time. But as well, the Quran emphasizes in the same chapter that, and there are a group of other Muslims, they do the same during the night and we see them. So what does it mean? It means that prophet and a group of believers, they were practicing, kind of what Urafa or what Sufis trying to imitate. Zikr kasir, to think, to remember God, and then to stay on prayer during the night, and then also tafakkur or contemplation as well. Quran repeatedly talks about contemplation, and so these are why all of them. Why? I think the answer is that to purify yourself. Why purify? To go back to the origin, the place that you belong to. So you need to purify yourself. And then, most amazingly, Prophet in the Quran as well is going to يُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ. Is the guy, is the prophet, is a person, is the teacher who teaches the book and the wisdom. We know a lot about the book, but let's think about wisdom as well. So the wisdom is having utmost important in spirituality, in ethics, in kind of deeper understanding. So, okay, if all these things, we call all this kind of activities Sufism, or later we call them Irfan. Is there anything wrong with them? Oh, or not? I mean, all the things that people like Mullah Sadra and others they are trying to say is that, well, the meaning of fiqh was much deeper at the beginning of Islam than what we are thinking now. It was not only like legal reasoning, it was not only extracting laws, that is, negotiating the relation of people with each other. It was rather a deeper understanding of the reality of the world, the responsibility of a self, knowing the relation between me and God, and my duties, my accountability, and my going back to the place that I belong to. And as well, I mean, it comes as well with the Sharia and then what they call it Haqiqa and Tariqa and Haqiqa. So it's a path, it's a way of living. In that sense, I assume that if we look at Quran, for instance, and many other hadiths as well, they ask people to live a spiritual life. Both, I mean, they don't ignore to live their life, but they emphasize on being aware, awakened.
Yeah.
Yeah, in that sense.
Yeah, I mean, and we have so many narrations to that effect. So many, for example, I remember this narration in Al-Kafi where
Yes.
Fudayd ibn Yasar visits Imam al-Sadiq,
Yes.
and the Imam says, إنني كثيرا ما أقول أن رجل عرفه الله هذا الأمر. This is
Yeah.
a fact. عرفه الله هذا الأمر. So Allah is teaching him.
Yeah.
So this is not knowledge acquired through a book.
Yeah.
This is God giving direct knowledge to a
Exactly.
man, to a person,
Yeah. حدثني قلبي عن ربي.
right? And
Yeah.
the Imam goes on to talk to Fudayd ibn Yasar, right? Presumably towards the end of his life, where he was very sick, right? Because it says, "Lam yabiq ila ra'sa," right? That he was very sick.
Yeah.
So this concept of immediate divine instruction,
Yes.
through spiritual purification, through tazkiyatun nafs, through tahdib al-nafs, through all of these things, is there. I mean, there's no doubt it is there. It's a very ever-present theme in Shi'i tradition and narrations and devotion.
Yes.
But I think the ultimate question, and this is where I'd love your response to this, is one is Shi'i and one is Sunni. How do we differentiate between the two? I think this is the point of it, right? I wouldn't foresee Shi'i scholars having, or at least having a problem with this tradition of Imam Sadiq. There's so many like it. But the question is, who is doing the teaching or who is the intermediary?
Exactly.
I think that's ultimately the question. Is it
Yeah. Yeah.
first caliphs?
Hmm.
Is it, or
Yeah.
people who love them and people man mala ilayhim? Or is it man mala ila imam,
Yes. Yes.
right? Al-imam al-ma'sum.
Yes. Yeah.
And can someone arrive at a state of spiritual purification in the thought of, especially the scholars that you have studied in this book, while taking away a tariq, in their view, I'm talking about, a way to arrive at that through, let's say, the Sunnah of the Ashab, which the 12er Shias clearly would reject. By
Yeah.
Ashab meaning those that don't follow Ali after the death of the Prophet.
Okay. Thank you so much. Good question. Yes. So, one thing is that I guess Sufism is paying attention to spiritual aspect of religion. And now we do have different schools of jurisprudence within the Sunni Islam and within the Shia Islam as well.
Yeah.
We have Akhbari Usuli understanding. We have like 25 different schools at least in Sunni Islam as well. But the point is that when you look at the spirituality, you want to pay attention to the realm of unity, wahda. Wahda, I don't mean the sense of wahda, political wahda or
Yeah,
unity,
yeah.
but the
Ontological. Yeah.
yes, yes. As far as I understand, many Sufi schools, many Sufi orders, they try to emphasize that there's lineage or the silsila, the chain of the silsila reaches to imams. And through imams, like through Ali ibn Abi Talib, so from Imam Rizal to Ali ibn Abi Talib, and then to prophets. Now, so because they are the authority of Islamic spirituality. Uh, Now, whether you are following the Hanafi fiqh or Maliki fiqh, but when it comes to this to Sufism, we notice that there are many of Sunni Sufism, they have different fiqhs, but in spirituality they have different imams. The imams of spirituality is different than imams of fiqh.
Yeah.
And it seems to be, in most cases, the imams of Ahlul Bayt. Imagine I have been in different countries in the Balkans, in the Middle East. So, there are many Sufi orders. I have been among them. I have studied them. For all of them, you have the names of imams over there, 12 imams. Why? Because they define them as the source of spirituality. Sort of as in al-insan al-kamil, the perfect man. Even for instance, like a Bektashi Sufi in the Balkans,
Actually, yeah.
yes, they have 14 infallibles, like Masumin, and but they don't follow the fiqh as we are in the Shia 12 or Shias. They have their own like risalas. Historically, they have their own risalas that was called Arkan Nama. So it was kind of a mixture between Risala Amaliya and something like Mafatih al-Janan. It was a mixture of them for like personal use or community use. But when it comes to spirituality, the question is that who is authoritative? And for instance, Ali is the one that is important in this sense. And maybe I can open this discussion here as well into the discussion of Kumayl ibn Ziyad
Excellent.
and the Kubrawiyya.
Yeah.
Because when I talk about Allama Tabatabai, his master, Sayyid Ali Ghazi, their master, Sayyid Ahmed Kabalawi, Sheikh Muhammad Bahari, then Mullah Hussain Qudsi, Sayyid Ali Shushtari, Jula, Sayyid Kashif. So my study and understanding shows that they are a version of the Zahabiyya Sufism, which is a Shia Sufism in the seminary, the seminary version of Zahabiyya Sufism, let's say. Now, there's one question. Zahabiyya is a branch of Kubrawiyya. So where Kubrawiyya comes from? This is the legitimate question, because so sometimes you read Kubrawiyya, Najmuddin Kubra, and then you may learn that, well, he was from Sohrawardiya, Najibuddin Sohrawardi. But a very recent scholarship by Aydogan Karsh, and then my own scholarship and investigation on the lineage of Kubrawiyya and Kubrawiyya's movement from Asia Minor to Iran, and also in relation to this school of what I call a school of Najaf, or self-knowledge school, is that there is one person. His name is Ismail Qasri. Ismail Qasri was one of the three masters of Najmuddin Kubra. Ismail Qasri was lived in Dazful, Iran, in the West Iran. And Dazful is an important place in finding the, kind of source of where Sayyid Ali Shushtari moves from into Najaf school, okay? There's a graveyard of Ismail Qasri in Dazful, in the city of Dazful. And now the question is that, what's the relation between Ismail Qasri and Najmuddin Kubra, who is the Shaykh of Kubrawiyya, which then becomes Zahabiyya and comes back to Iran or to Shi'ism? So the point is that a number of scholars, they overlook the relationship between Qasri and Kumayl ibn Ziyad al-Nakhai. Now, Aydogan Karsh, in his paper, he talks about the importance of paying attention to the role of Ismail Qasri in relation with Najmuddin Kubra, because it connects the Kubrawiyya with the lineage of Kumayl ibn Ziyad and then Ali ibn Abi Talib, and which was overlooked by someone like Hussein Kharazmi. They didn't mention that. So I just wanted to emphasize to this point that now, historically speaking, you can find those relations as well. So you may say that, oh, it was a Sunni, for instance, school. But in a sense, even if it was Sunni school, some people, scholars like Muhammad Taqi Danish Paju, who was a scholar of manuscript, he calls those orders as Sunni, that was the Imami. This 12 are Sunnis, emphasize,
Yeah.
emphasizing on their kind of spiritual relationship with the imams, accepting their authorities. Yes, you may find also other people that they are not, but the majority of Sufism is in that sense connected. Or they try to say that we are connected.
They're connected. Okay. And then how would you define Shi'i-Sufi syncretism? Would that be it? When you use that word, Shi'i-Sufi syncretism, this kind of mixing
okay.
of the two, would this 12er Sunni Sufi spirituality be a kind of syncretic mixture, in a sense, between the two schools? Because you have the fiqh on one hand and you have Ash'ari Kalam on the other as well.
Yes.
Alongside with the spiritual, what is envisioned by them to be the spiritual path of the Imams.
Yeah.
So you have a kind of um,
Yes, yes,
a mixing taking place here.
exactly.
Because you have Ash'ari Kalam,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
have some school of fiqh, whether it be Hanafi or Shafi'i, whatever it may be, or it even could be Maturidi. I mean, who knows, right?
yeah,
Some
yeah,
school of theology, and then here you have the spiritual, the dhikr and the spiritual purification, zuhud, and all of that, as inspired by the imams, by the
exactly.
everywhere from Imam Ali all the way down to, let's say, Imam Rida, or so on and so forth. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, thank you so much. I think that when we talk about Sufism and Shiism, uh, in one sense, I following another scholars like Ashaybi and his As-Salab
Yeah.
or
Mhm.
Shia was Sufi. The point is that the people also like Sayyid Amoli, they emphasize on the as kind of foundational ideas within this too. Uh, so they see Shiism basically and fundamentally an inward, batini, spiritual movement within Islam. A Shi'i Imam, for a Shi'i Imam, spirituality comes first and anything else comes second. Like for Ali ibn Abi Talib, like tell me which is important for Ali, to be a leader of a community or to guide souls to God, to be a spiritual leader. My understanding is that, or based on what I understood from these scholars, is that they tell us that for Ali, it's important to guide the souls rather than to be a political leader. I mean, he can be a political leader, and there's no question on that. But the major role of Imam, of a Hakim, وَيُعَلِّمُهُمُ الْكِتَابَ وَالْحِكْمَةِ,
The wise man. Yeah.
yeah, the wise man, the sage is the one who can lead you toward the origin. So inna lillah wa inna ilayhi raji'un. So the one, the perfect man, so can play this role. Um, now, basically, the understanding is that we have the notion of valaya here when it comes to the leadership of Imam and the idea of valaya or the guardianship, which is essential, very essential within the Shiism and also essential in Sufism. Then that's the core. Everything else comes like a second, third, and fourth. But that makes people that makes people like Sayyid Haydar Amali to think that if you really uh, grasp the spirituality of Imam or the valaya of Imam, whether you follow any fiqh, that makes you like a kind of that makes you two group of people the same in different levels or in a spiritual level. However, you may follow different facts or different mujtahids, because within the Shia tradition, you also have different maraji, authority of jurisprudence, that they may represent kind of different ideas when it comes to the law. Someone may allow you to do this, or someone else may prohibits you. But when it comes to spirituality, they say that because of the centrality of walaya, then the authority of Imam is there, and that's the main point of kind of closeness of this too. I know that there are many other questions,
Yeah.
but I just want to add a sentence, just a
Go
sentence
ahead.
from Sheikh Muhammad Bahari. He was in the lineage of the masters of Allama Tabatabai, and he was called Hakim al-Ashab, the sage among the companion of Mullah Hussein Ghali Shabandi. He has one sentence, and I have written a paper on this one sentence. In Farsi, he says that فقه مقدمه عمل است. وأعمال مقدمية أخلاق وأخلاق مقدمية توحيد. So all those facts, the jurisprudence, all the laws are an introduction to practice. And all the practice is as an introduction to make you a moral, a, a person with good moralities. And becoming a person with good moralities in an introduction to reach you and to Tawheed, to guide you to Tawheed, to lead you to Tawheed, the oneness of God. Now, you move from jurisprudence to Tawheed. Why I'm saying this? Because he is in fact translating Sharia, Tariqa, and Haqiqa, which is in Sufism. And when it comes to spirituality, you may use different terminology, but in fact, you are kind of discussing the same thing with different terms.
Yeah, so it's a kind of, and I think this is the tension, isn't it, again, Doctor? This is the tension at hand. It's a sort of pluralism
Yes.
that many jurists, and I think the ahadith itself,
Yeah.
in many ways is uncomfortable with, and how to negotiate that without making the tradition itself superfluous, right? Because the tradition, sunnah, the whole idea of ittiba'an ta'atul imam,
Yes.
obedience to the imam, man faradallahu ta'atahu, becomes superfluous, then, right? In some ways, it can become, and that's where I think the instability, anxiety, and fear comes up.
Mm-hmm.
How do the committed Shi'i scholars from the seminary, from Sadra to Alama Tabatabai, deal with that? Because obviously they believed in the Imams. Obviously they believed in the truth of the path of the Imams in every aspect, not just, in one way and not in another. They believed that they were the complete, perfect example theologically, legally, in terms of every aspect of life, right? The Imam was the qutb.
Yes.
That there was no splitting, there was no buffet style kind of pick and choose from here, and kind of the other things don't matter. I don't think, certainly not for Sadra, nor for definitely not for Lama Tabatabai or Sayyid Ali Qadi. They didn't follow such a path. At least I don't think so. I mean, you can correct me. I mean, based on reading your book. So how would they deal with this? Like, would they be okay with saying, for example, well, as long as you're spiritual, that's what matters, but the other stuff is not that important.
Mm-hmm.
I think they would have said that, right? So how would have they dealt with it, or at least the people that you've studied in your book, in terms of like, how do they reconcile their Shi'i identity and the idea that spirituality is a broad quest? It is a broad quest. It's negotiating that anxiety, isn't it?
Yes, yes. So I have different ideas regarding this question. Maybe one is going back to Quran itself.
Mhm.
So Quran talks about fitra.
Yeah,
فأقم وجهك للدين حنيفا فطرة
yeah,
الله التي فطر الناس عليها.
yeah,
So turn your face toward religion, okay?
yeah,
حنيفا. So turn about to religion, and then you ask, okay, what's the religion that I need to turn toward? It says it's your fitra. Oh, fitra. Where is my fitra? Well, fitra is inside you. It is the inner aspect of you. It's
yeah.
innate nature of you. It's the human disposition. So it's you. In fact, you have to activate yourself to become religious, to turn to religion. It doesn't mean that there is something outside, I mean, something unfamiliar with your nature, something that is not from you, strange to you, and then I give it to you, and then I say that, okay, here it is. From now on, forget everything, take this and follow this. No, in fact, Quran doesn't say. It says that it is a zikr. It is a reminder. You have something, you forgot about it, you forget about it, and I'm reminding you as a reminder. Prophet is reminder. Quran is reminder. Religion is in fitra of you. So now, do we have a number of people, only a group of people being able to reach to that spirituality or not? That one question. What about the other religion? Quran talks about other religion and says that whoever sincerely follows those, la khawfun alayhim. So there's no reason for them to be kind of fearful. One point.
Yeah.
And talks about even group of them that they are kind of praying during the night, vigilant, with zikr, with anything, looking for tawheed. All those who are looking for tawheed in the Quran are respected. In fact, called all of them are Muslim. One, and muwahhid on the other hand, and fitri. And Islam is the religion of fitra, it calls itself. Now,
Primordial nature, you would define.
yes, exactly. And now, I think that one general aspect is that, well, God is not limited the path to just a number of people and prohibiting the other number of them. Second, a person like Allama Tabatabai, for instance, when he talks about some Upanishads, like Hindus or other texts from other religions, and he says that, well, I see Tawheed over there. Look at, if you go back, for instance, you read some very ancient, as I read New Confucianism, okay, and you find things that kind of amazing. Yeah, how you find similarities. Okay, and the people, the sages, the importance of the sage within that context as well. And then you have the prophet as sages here in the Quran as well. Um, all these people like, and another thing, let me let me say that there is a treatise called Risale-i Nur Wahdat, the treatise of the light of oneness, written from a Naqshbandi Sufi Khaja Khord, or they call it Khaja Hawra Maghribi, but Khaja Khord in Chashtiya, in fact. Chashtiya Sufi. And then what happens, the point is that Allama Tabatabai learned from his masters. They were reading that Risala written by Sunni Sufi, apparently Sunni Sufi, and using it for contemplation. They call it muraqabiyya tafakkuri, for the muraqaba, for thinking about the deep thinking to actualize the concepts of that treatise, which is all about God, love, and transforming yourself from paying attention to kasarat or the manyness into changing to transferring you to oneness. So now this book, commented by Tabatabai, by his Sayyid Muhammad Hussein Husseini Tehrani, by other scholars, other disciples that right now they are in Hausa, in the seminary in Qom at least. So a number of people, I mean, they pay attention to this result. They use it in their practices, in their mystical practice, for those who are in the middle stages of wayfaring, as a source for muraqab, as a tafakkur, the contemplations, the seclusions and contemplation. Why it is a Sunni, for instance? Why the book? Because the point is that if you go inside and to the realm of Tawheed, probably you get insights from the one who has the knowledge. If you reach there, you get this from the source of knowledge. You don't get it from the shaitan, for instance. Now I understand this is a legitimate question to ask. What happens to fiqh? Okay, what's the, where's the important fiqh of fiqh in this discussion? Well,
Or even kalam.
yeah, even kalam.
Who
Yes.
is God? What are his
Mhm.
attributes? What does that mean?
The same now, the same of this between Shia and Sunni goes on between Shia and Shi'i then.
Yeah.
You have from one side the school of Tabatabai, the what I call Maktab al-Najaf, the school of Najaf, or what they call themselves the school of self-knowledge, because of the importance of the self-knowledge in their tariqah, in their order. And then you have the other school, this Maktab al-Tafkik, or the school of separation. So they are in within the same, she understanding, but they do have two different Kalami views. They have two different philosophical and
Yeah,
anti-philosophical.
I think the listeners will benefit now because let's go towards that now. I think this will be really good to kind of bring a clarity. Let's talk kind of within the 12 verse Shi'i seminary, right? These
Mhm.
people that we're now going to discuss are Imami 12 verse
Yes,
within the seminary itself.
yes,
There's two schools you discuss in this book. There's the
yeah.
school of the knowledge of presence, this what you
So
call Sufi school of Najaf,
yes,
and there's Maktabat Tafkik.
yes.
These two schools. Can you kind of just briefly outline for the listeners what these two schools are? Because they're both within the 12 Rashidi Seminary.
Yes, yes, yes. So this is exactly what happened in different religions as well. In every set of religion, you have the people who are pro reason, the people who are
Yeah.
against reason. If you look at the Muslim Spain, the time within Muslim Spain, if you study that, for instance, Jews within that community, you have a number of them, like Musa bin Maymun, Maimonides, who learned from some of the Muslim philosophers and who kind of tries to articulate the use of reason in understanding revelation. On the other hand, you have another uh, Jewish scholars who is strongly opposing this. He says, no, you should not do this.
And then we kind of have schools in between too.
Exactly. Yes. Now, within the Shia seminary as well, I mean, this is what happens in every religious setting now, because it's us as human being and the way of interpretation and understanding religion. What happens is that within the schools that I studied, like from 1850 on to 1980, uh, are representing two different modes of understanding and interpretation. One, which is Maktab al-Najaf, is, as I mentioned, is kind of the hair of a mystical school, the hair of the Mullah Sajid's school, and and then Ibn Arabi's, and then philosophy and Kalam, and rational thinking about religion, and even rational thinking about hadiths as well. On the other hand, you do have Mirza Mahdi Isfahani, who was in fact the disciple of this school. He was started with
Makes
the
sense.
Sayyid Ahmed Karbala'i in some sense. However, he had other masters as well. But he was in this school. Now, according to himself, then there was the question of imams, that what happens to the imam, what's the role of imam. So he says that he saw in a dream that Imam Mahdi, Allah Ta'ala Faraj Sharif, says that, gives him a writing, a hadith in writing, says that whoever follows a path of anyone except us, Ahlul Bayt, is equal to denying us. If you follow anything else or anyone else, is equal to denying us. And that's becomes a point in which Aswani thinks about. So whatever philosophy and Sufism, whatever I learned was not from Imam, and then I have to go and rethink it all about the pure Islam and pure Ahlul Bayt. The same as, like, for instance, earlier Ibn Taymiyyah, for instance, I don't want to say that Mirza Mahdi was the follower of Ibn Taymiyyah, but I want to say that the, kind of return,
Similar debates and tensions. Yeah.
yes, purity, purification. We need to purify religion from whatever else stuff. And the point is that the person who is purifying religion, in fact, that's himself becoming another, philosopher or anti-philosopher. That's you again. That's the interpreter. We as interpreter, or you as the one who narrates the hadith, but from your own lens. And your own lens maybe is that there's nothing, I don't add anything to the hadith. And I try to understand it literally. And then that literal understanding is your own interpretation as well. But anyway, so within this two opposite school, what was important for the school of Tabatabai and his master was that uh, actually we need to articulate the ideas, because this school needs much scholarly attention. I think that we do not have enough scholarship regarding this school yet.
Little.
Yeah, but I can say that after people like Mullah Hussein Quli Shabandi, Shabandi was a student of Hakim Sabzawari, who was a great philosopher himself, Mullah Hadi Sabzawari. And then Sayyid Ahmad al-Karbalawi, he is a master of theoretical mysticism as well as a practical mysticism or fiqh or ikhwan. These people at the same time, they are faqih mujtahid. Sayyid Ali Shushtari, the relation with Sheikh Murtada Ansari. I have written in this book that they had, the relation that they have together. So the point is that for this school, up to when it comes to Allama Tabatabai, and he articulates it, is that the point is that so when the revelation, reason, or aql, at least it's in its ontological state.
Yeah.
And then revelation, aql, and intuition, they are talking about the same reality, but with different language. They speak about the same thing with different languages. They never avoid or neglect the importance of receiving revelation. No, at all. They don't say that, okay, you have your reason, it's enough for you. No. But the way that reason operates here is important. For the school of Mirza Mahdi Isfahani,
Maktab al-Tafkik.
the Maktab al-Tafkik, the school of separation, the point is that, well, you have to purify religion. You have to purify the divine theology from human theology. They call this integration as human theology. So you need a divine theology, which according to them is the back to Imams, just that understanding. And later on, when his disciple tried to, kind of articulate, come to discussion with the school, other pro-philosophers, pro-philosophy thinkers, they said that, well, the reason, okay, they said that, no, we don't say that the reason must completely eliminate that. We just certify the role of reason in sense of a guide to lead us to the knowledge of Imam.
Yeah.
To
So
help us understand that Imam is
it's a methodological tool
yes,
of training the mind. Yeah.
yes, not beyond that, not beyond that. And there was a discussion and conversation between Allama Javadi Amoli, who was a student of Allama Tabatabai, with Ayatollah Sayyidan, who is the follower of Maktab al-Tafkik nowadays in Mashhad. And they discussed over the notion of aql, intellect, and the way it, uh, whether it helps us or
This is fascinating. Can you just tell us a little bit? This is too fascinating. You have to tell us a little bit more, Doctor,
Oh, okay.
about this.
Yes, that was happened like about around 30 years ago.
Okay. So
Uh,
just towards the end of your timeline, but it's still relevant because
yes, yeah,
Aga Jawadi is from the school of Alam and Tabatabai, right?
yes, yes. Javadi Amoli is a school of Tabatabai. He was arguing that what's the role of aql uh, in in understanding revelation or religion, and we know that he is also at the same time philosopher. He is following the path of Allama Tabatabai in the sort of intellectual, rational tafsir or commentary of Quran as well. Now, so Sayyidan, on the other hand, in Mashhad, who is the like main figure of the school of separation, uh, now in one sentence, imagine if they think and they use the symbol of light for aql, for intellect. So imagine for Sayyidan, we are in a cave, a dark cave, and then so we turn on the light, and then why needed to turn it on? Because we need to see that there are something written on the walls of this cave, so be able to read those. But Sure, for Javadi Amoli is the same, but not only that, only just showing, but only to understand, to interpret as well, and to lead us to kind of certain deeper meaning of all those resources that we have, because that's the your intellect, which is kind of receiving and at rest uh, in the divine speech. Now, this conversation, unfortunately, the conversation was not recorded.
Hmm. Unfortunately.
There are kind of a third person narrating it, and we are not sure if that is fully kind of copied.
Actual, yeah.
Yeah,
In
but
every way, yeah.
yeah, but on the other hand, you have some Allama Ashtiani, who was in Mashhad himself. He wrote a book on, in fact, criticizing Imam Ghazali and his Tahafut al-Falasifa, but in fact he was answering to Mirza Mahdi Isfahani indirectly. There are a good number of scholarship literature produced from both schools, kind of responding to the claims and arguments of each other, and which are, I think that we need to pay attention to those in a way to understand what each one is claiming.
Exactly, because I think one of the important issues that is often missed is that Tabatabai,
Yeah,
Alama Tabatabai, is someone who deeply loved the hadith of Ahlul Bayt as well.
yeah,
The
yeah,
idea that he was somehow a proponent of Tafsir bil-Ra'i, the school of just, arbitrary opinion of interpreting the Quran, at least as that's understood through history,
yeah,
is just not the truth. If you read Al-Mizan and then you look at he has another tafsir bil-riwaya, as we know, he has two. He
yeah,
also has a Hashi on Bihar. He
yes,
clearly,
yeah,
hadith was very important to him.
yes,
The position of the Imams was very important to him.
exactly.
Jawadi Amali has a whole commentary on Jamia Kabira, right?
Yeah,
We know, and
yeah,
so much hadith and tasneem. All the
yeah,
time he's talking about
yeah,
hadith and Imam. So I think sometimes the other I don't want to say extreme, but the other interpretation is, oh yeah, these mystics or these people, they don't care about hadith, they don't know anything about it, they don't, la yumiluna lil aimma, they don't even turn to it. This is not true. This is
Exactly.
this is completely false, I think,
Yes.
historically and academically incorrect.
Yeah, yes, incorrect. And in a sense, if you look at the Mullah Sadra's tafsir on Usul al-Kafi, for instance,
Yeah.
so Mullah Sadr has tafsir of Quran, and he has also tafsir on Usul al-Kafi at this time.
Kafi, yeah.
And as you mentioned, Tabatabai's commentary on Bahar, why he does so? Because he wants to say that, well, there are a number of hadiths. You everyone knows that not all the hadiths in Bahar are sound
Yeah.
hadiths. It is an encyclopedia.
Yeah.
And then, a group of other people tried to stop him, and they were kind of being they were able to stop him. That the only six
Didn't finish it.
volume,
Yeah.
yeah, six volume of Bahar was published by his commentary, but the other ones no. And Tabatabai said that the importance of Imam As-Sadiq is much more important for me than defending Allah Majlisi himself.
Yeah.
And at the same time, the discussion goes between Majlisi and Mullah Sadra as well.
On the concept of akal, yeah, you
Yes.
discussed that in the book. I think the listeners will have to get the book to read about it, right? But
Yeah.
um, let's conclude with I think the penultimate question,
Yes, please.
ultimate question, which is reason, revelation, and spiritual intuition. This is a perennial tension. It's a perennial
Yeah.
debate, and in all religions, as you said, and within Shiism, clearly within the Shi'i tradition. And your book, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, or rather shed further light on this, is really an exposition on this in some ways, right? Um, you have something like revelation and the sayings of the Imams, which are seen as ilham or seen as a form of sacred literature. On the other hand, you have the human being
Yes.
who is also seeking God and trying to find their way and wants to purify themselves. But human beings are not robots.
Yes.
So how do they navigate all of this in order to still be under the umbrella of the wilaya of God and the wilaya of the Imam, while still having that faith and religion speak to their heart? And I think this is the ultimate question, right?
Yes.
And the interlocutors that you engaged with in this book, from Seyed Amoli to Sayyid Bahr al-Ulum to Tabatabai, I mean, so many, Mullah
Yeah.
Sadra, to the Isfahani, Maktab al-Tafkik, are all trying to engage with this burning question, ultimately, right?
Yeah.
Do you have any other words, or like based on what I said, like is that I'm trying to kind of describe it in a more kind of from 30,000 feet above. Yeah.
No, thank you so much. It was great to be with you in this past hour and talk about the book. Um, well, yes, it's a legitimate question. It's important. Still, I think that the person, even those who were pro-Tafkik,
Mhm.
uh, some of them, when they were asked about Irfan and spirituality, I just heard myself. They said that, no, we do have a mukashafa as well. We do have intuition as well. We do.
Yep.
And then the question was again, so what's the difference then? However, yes, there are differences, but as you mentioned, human being is like created with the ability to think and understand with the aql or intellect. But the point is that the intellect itself um, has degrees. Intellect itself could, you know, could expand, get deeper, get more insight from the heaven as well, like from the divine, and being able to understand the things that yesterday was not able to understand, to be engaged into those hadiths, for instance, and then the ability to purify your heart, because heart as well in the Quran is place of understanding, is place of thinking. Now, people like Allama Tabatabai saying that you need to purify yourself to better understand the revelation, to reach yourself to some levels, higher levels that this revelation comes from. You need to elevate yourself. You need to realize and actualize the potentialities within yourself. So you should not stop. I mean, using whether engaging in spirituality, self-knowledge, or irfan. On the other hand, intellectual contemplations as well is helpful, according to them, to understand all those divine revelation, and actually they use this as a way of life. They use it as wayframe in order to kind of activate, actualize, yes, realize themselves, their realities. And as I mentioned, one thing that at the end we need to pay attention to is the notion of hikmah
Yeah.
in the Quran.
Wisdom.
So, Prophet as teacher of wisdom, and what's his wisdom? How do we learn that? Do we need to learn that or not? Where from? How to? Now, how to be engaged in? Because wisdom in the Quran is not only theoretical but practical as well. Who is guiding us toward that wisdom as well? These are also important questions to ask and engage with this, the
I
point
think,
that you mentioned.
and just to kind of conclude, and at least for the thinkers that you've discussed in this book, whether they be from Sayyid Bahr al-Ulum all the way to Tabatabai to Isfahan, for all of them, the 12 Imams are centered.
Absolutely, yes.
There's no doubt about this. And
No,
however they approach it,
no.
they travel through the door of the Imams.
Exactly, yes.
And they are indispensable to them. And that mediation is
Yeah,
through them, right? And
absolutely,
we know Tabatabai was a very deep believer in this, right?
absolutely.
Path, the spiritual path. They may arrive at it in different ways or they have different methods, but the Imams are the very center of their devotional love of their life, right? I think
Exactly, yes.
that's
And
the point to
the
make
quote,
clear,
yes,
right?
yes, the
Um,
pole, the quote,
of course,
Imam
he's
said,
the
yeah,
center, right? For all of this, even though they have obviously different ideas and different interpretations
exactly,
of that, but the devotion is one at the
yes,
center of that.
yes, yes.
Well, this was a fascinating. I mean, we really could have gone on a lot longer, but I think your book, as a good book does, raises a lot of questions. I think a lot more research needs to be done. A
Exactly.
time period that you've brought up. Very little is known. I mean, even in the works of Sayyid Mahdi Tabatabai,
Mhm.
and
Exactly.
others, there's so much work still to be done on the
Exactly.
figures that you bring up. I would say in post Safavid, or even just contemporary Shi'i spirituality, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you very
Well,
much for this contribution to the academy, to the field. And I hope people will definitely benefit from your book. Thanks to all the viewers for joining us and listening this far. Visit our website, social media, our YouTube channel, shiaresearch.ca. You can go to our website. If you enjoyed today's conversation, think about contributing to SRI to drive more quality and content in the future. And we hope that you will join us for future episodes on this series. Thank you very much. And thank you again, Dr. Askari, for joining us.
you're welcome. Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. It was a pleasure.
Thank you.
Thank you.